How do you learn how to build these systems? Did you have a mentor or somebody who's kind of helping you build them?
Building the standard operating procedures is the hardest thing for any real estate agent, especially if they're solo.
When you started, were you always 100% confident that you'll succeed?
Yes, since I was 14 years old. When I first got into the business, I built my business from sweat equity. I was doing cold calling, door knocking. I was sitting in a courthouse, and every time a judge would say, this homeowner needs to sell their house, they got 90 days, I will get up from my chair, run to the door and chase the homeowner. And that's how I built my business. I hated it. I didn't like the culture. I didn't like how they treated women. I didn't like, there was no equality, no opportunity. I told my mom, why was I born here? It's working. I think I will outwork every single person in my market.
Welcome to another episode of the Dealmakers Chronicles. Today, we're joined by Lourdes Maestres from Compass, a top producer in Fort Lauderdale luxury market, or better known as the Queen of Fort Lauderdale real estate. Welcome, Lourdes. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for coming on.
So, Lourdes, you have an interesting journey. You started with commercial lending, and then you transitioned into real estate, and you're doing extremely well. Take us back to how that transition happened, and what did you do with commercial lending?
So I was in banking for many years, and my last position was business banking. I was doing small business loans, and when the economy crashed, I was one of the first people to lose my job. At that time, I said, I'm never going back to corporate, and I had already been flipping homes, doing wholesale deals, like basically flipping paper, buying something for $100,000, selling it for $105,000 the next day. So I said at that time, this is my opportunity to just go all in. I'm already broke. Might as well do it.
Very interesting. So you started with flipping, and then you said, I'm doing pretty good. So from my understanding, you were wholesaling the deal. So you were not even buying it. You were just assigning the contract.
Yes.
And at what point do you get into representing buyers and buying their homes? Like, how does that happen? Because it's a different business model where some people go off and do wholesaling and make a whole thing out of it. They get people, they maybe move into multifamily investing. How did you decide just representing home buyers, home sellers?
So when I started doing wholesaling, I was not a real estate agent. And at that moment, I really didn't love the business. So I decided to get my real estate license, and then I dedicated myself to do short sales, which was what's happening in that time when I got into the business. So I have done over 300 short sales. But before I became an agent doing short sales, I was working for a company who had bought $1 billion portfolio from the FDIC. And my job, I was sitting on a desk with a bunch of files. My job was to analyze every property and be like, okay, we're going to take a short payoff on this one. So I started seeing all the money that the real estate agents were making. And I said, I don't want to be sitting behind this desk. I am going to be one of those real estate agents. So that's when I decided to go all in. And when I closed my first real estate deal, I quit my job and I never looked back.
And was Fort Lauderdale always your market, or did you start elsewhere?
So my first 10 years of my career, I was all over the place. Wherever I would get an appointment, I will drive anywhere, an hour, two, anywhere. I would do rentals, commercial leases, residential homes, anything. I would say no. I would never say no. After 10 years of that and being almost burned out, I was like, okay, now I need to change my model. And that's when I became strictly a residential agent. And that's when I kind of like created divisions within my team to be able to have different departments handle those and me just focus on what I wanted to do instead of being all over the map.
So what made you pick that niche specifically? Like you said, when you first started, you kind of were doing everything, whether it was rentals, different cities, towns. What made you select the niche that you wanted to? Did you envision yourself being where you are right now when you did make that selection?
So I feel like most people, when they get into real estate, they don't really know what they're getting into. And it takes a little time before you kind of figure out where do you really fit. In my case, since I had a banking background, I was doing a lot of short sales. So it was very easy for me to handle those conversations because I understood the language and what needed to be done. As I started growing, I raised a little bit of money. I did flips. Then I was no longer doing wholesale. I was doing real investments. I was buying, fixing them up. So I had to build a team to improve the properties, add value, and then, make profits. The market started to change in 2014. And that's when I kind of adapted my business model, and I went into a different direction. But basically, I started to identify what I really liked. Honestly, I'm still figuring it out. I like luxury sales. They're so easy to do, but we're always evolving. I'm going to be building homes very soon. So I'm always changing and trying different strategies, and it's exciting because doing the same thing is boring.
Did you, when you first got into, okay, I want to do residential sales, did you have any kind of metrics in your head? Okay, if I sell 5 condos or 5 homes, I'll call it a successful year. Or was it, okay, let me just try to do as much as I possibly can and hope for the best outcome?
So no, I had metrics. I had always metrics. From the early days, my goal was to do 100 deals a year with a one-time full-time assistant. As I start growing into my business, I start realizing this is not doable. I don't want to do that. And in the last 6 years, I said, I only want to do 30 deals a year and triple my income. So for me, less is more. Quality versus the quantity. I have no interest whatsoever in doing hundreds of deals. That's why I built a team to be able to do that without having me be the one leading everything.
You mentioned that's easier to do like more like luxury properties. Easier how? You're dealing with a different caliber of buyers, or what's the biggest difference between somebody who's buying a $400,000 home and a $6 million home?
It's the big difference aside from the zeros is that people make decisions quick and they like you or they don't. There's no running around. They're very smart. They don't have time to be wasting anybody's time. So it's just quicker. You're dealing with people who, you have very not minimum, but you have less education to do throughout the process and people that know what they want. And when they want something, they just pay for it.
So you mentioned that you've been growing your team. How big is your team now?
So my team, I would say, is considered small. I have 12 real estate agents, mainly buyer's agents, and I have 9 staff. And my staff includes operations manager. I have a full-time executive assistant. I have 2 inside sales associate team that they make cold calls all day long. I have 2 marketing coordinators and a full-time recruiter and 2 transaction coordinators in-house.
So what was your first hire when you decided to say, okay, I need to start building in my team? What was your first hire that you found the most important for your business?
That's a great question. So my first hire was an assistant. A lot of the top real estate coaches say that once you hit 25 transactions, you need an assistant. Anything less than that, you can handle on your own and do it all. And once I did that, it kind of allowed me to grow a little bit more. And she was my assistant, then she became my operations manager. She's still my operations manager now.
Very nice. And do you see yourself growing from this point, or do you want to stay in the size where you're very nimble, you're able to adapt your business model, or you have bigger aspirations beyond your current team size?
If you would have asked me that question 5 years ago, I would have said, I want to be the largest team in the county. I have no interest in doing that. I am exactly where I want to be. Right now, my focus is on quality and doing larger deals, which is what I'm targeting. I have no interest in growing anymore other than maintaining the flow. We're helping right now on average between 180 to 200 families a year. Me personally, I'm handling about 30 of those transactions a year, and the team is handling everything else. So I'm able to provide a really good lifestyle for everybody who works with me and opportunities and continue to grow the brand without killing myself, basically.
How are you finding Go ahead, Farouk.
No, I was going to ask. So it seems like you pivoted at some point. Before you want to kind of do as many as you can, and now you said no. So was there like a kind of moment where you said, "Oh, you know what? I'm done with this. This is too much. Somebody messed up pretty bad, or it's just too many moving parts." Like, what made you say, "Okay"? Because it seems like something must have happened for you to say, "Okay, I'm not doing that anymore." Definitely not. So what was that event?
Yeah, so many times I'm always pivoting and adapting. So, I mean, there's so many changes as we start growing and learning how to build teams. I think building a team is one of the hardest things to do. Being a team leader is a very, very tough job. And what happens is when I started building my team, I kind of took a step back from heavy production. I did not want to be the main rainmaker for my team. I wanted to run the team and make everybody very successful. But when the market was really good, everybody was selling houses with very little skills. So it was very profitable, extremely good. Everybody was super happy. The moment the market changed and you need skills to sell in this market. That's when I started to realize, okay, a lot of these people are in it just for the quick buck. I don't want that. I don't want agents who have commission breath. I'm looking for quality. I want A players, people who have a growth mindset. They want to be the best, like in number one, instead of, oh, I just want a commission check. So that's when I realized, okay, finding those people is extremely hard. And that's when I said, I don't want this. There's no way I'm going to find 100 A players. I can find, 12, 15, 20 A players, but I don't want to do this at that level. So I'm focused on quality, and I want all of my agents to be the best agents and have integrity and like do the right things. So we're focused on elevating their skills so they represent who I am as a real estate agent.
So with 8 agents, right, you have, I assume,
12.
The integrity, the personality, the drive to succeed. And so production. Do you bring on people who are newbies, who just have the drive, or do you like to bring on people who have already proved themselves to be good realtors?
So in the beginning, I did. I would bring in anybody who had potential. Now I don't. Now I have to have a little bit of experience because it takes, with this market right now in 2025, it takes on average about 18 months for any brand new agents to start making decent money. And by the time they start making some money, they're paying off the debt of, they hadn't made any money in the last 18 months. So I don't. I hire people who are either a struggling agent who's never really made it on their own, who's had done at least 5-6 transactions. They have potential and they just need mentorship and guidance, support and tools. So that's my avatar. That's my perfect candidate. Brand new agents is just very, very tough. I usually send them to another broker. Say, go learn there and call me back in 2 years.
You survive the 2 years and then you come back. So you keep mentioning that today's market is very different than it was, a couple of years ago. With today's market being as hard as it is, inventory is on the rise, properties are staying on the market longer, the rates haven't gone down as expected. What are some of the things that you are doing to be able to keep up that volume in terms of that you refer to 180 to 200 transactions a year?
So spend a lot of money, invest, it takes money to make money. And that's one lesson I've learned over the last 5 years. When I first got into the business, I built my business from sweat equity. I was doing cold calling, door knocking. I was sitting in a courthouse, and every time a judge would say, this homeowner needs to sell their house, they got 90 days. I will get up from my chair, run to the door and chase the homeowner. And that's how I built my business from sweat equity. The last 6 years, the business has evolved, very heavy on online marketing, online lead generation, relationships, right? Because once you meet this person, now you need a system to be able to continue the relationship and get more business out of them. So I would say what I've done a lot more now is I've spent more money on those systems that allow me to have processes. So the business is always running and we're not one good month, one bad month. We're always producing, always new opportunities, always have appointments, always have writing up contracts. So I don't have any downtime anymore. It's a steady flow with what I've built so far. And now it's a matter of, can the real estate agent convert, right? But the opportunity in the machine is.
How do you learn how to build these systems? Did you have a mentor or somebody who's kind of helping you build them? Because I think systems is probably the most challenging thing anybody can do. There are successful real estate agents who sell a good amount of property, but they have a hard time scaling from one person to a whole team. And like you said, it's nothing more than systems. If you can perfect doing that, you don't even need to be as good of a seller. You can scale much quicker. How did you learn how to go about building these systems?
So in 2019, I went to a Tom Ferry event, Tom Ferry, the real estate coach. And when I went to that event in New York City, I sat in a room of 100 top team leaders that have all these systems and all these things. And I was just blown away. And I went home that day and I was like, this is it. This is how I'm going to go from here to here. And it took me about 2.5 years to build all my operations. And it's still ongoing. Last week, we just changed all of the processes we have for marketing each listing. Now we have to do way more activities now than what we did a year ago, 3 years ago. Building the standard operating procedures is the hardest thing for any real estate agent, especially if they're solo, but everybody should start somewhere. And you should start with what are some of those things that do not generate any income, but are necessary? And you start building from there. And that's kind of what I did. And I have over 100 standard operating procedures for my business. Anything we do, we have a process. If I go away to Europe for a month, I need my team to run without me. So that's really what I did.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Does your team ever get intimidated by all these processes? Because you said, if somebody's making, sold 5 or 6 deals in their lifetime or in a couple of years, to come into a system where it's much more scheduled, there goes the whole, I work on my own hours whenever I want to. I'm a personal trainer on the side, but whatever. I'm a real estate agent part-time. All that goes out of the window, I assume, when they work for you. Is that a shock to these people, or how do they digest it? Or are they super excited? Okay, this is it. This is what I needed. Let's go.
I get both. So we have an 8-step process for interviewing. I have a full-time recruiter who actually works out of Honduras, and his job, he doesn't have phone conversation. Everything he does is digital, from Google Forms to questionnaires to all kinds of things. And throughout the process, There's one area where we ask for a business plan. There's an area where we ask for scripts, like we send them a script and they need to submit a voice recording. And it's funny because I had an agent who was an agent for like 25 years in the business. And she's like, who do you think you are? I'm not doing any of these things. And literally, I'm like, thank you so much. This is exactly what we want. We want to eliminate those people who cannot handle technology, who could not handle evolution, who cannot handle the high stress. This is a very high stress business, and you need to be able to bounce from one app to another, to another, to another. You get a phone call, everything's recorded. What do you do next? So technology is a big part of my business. And when I get a pushback or I get somebody who applies and takes too long to respond to the assignment that we're giving them, we don't hire them. And the reason we don't hire them is because they already show me that they don't have the ability to do a lot of things and handle technology quickly, and they're overthinking it. And I'm not interested in somebody who's overthinking everything. I know I'm not for everyone. A lot of people don't like me, and that's okay too. But it's a little bit military style. I'm spending money. I need to know that you're worth it.
No, absolutely. And were you always like this? Like, I see you're very ambitious, very structured, very logical. Is that something you think, in your opinion, some people can acquire? Or is this something you're just born with? Is it a gene? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of both. I'm an immigrant. I came to the United States 27 years ago, and I felt like I'm very competitive. So like, I'll give you an example. Like, I went on one of my first listing appointments that was like a property worth in the 2 to 3 million. I remember the seller being kind of like mean to me because I had a strong accent and he couldn't understand what I was saying, and he automatically assumed I was from Miami, even though I live in Fort Lauderdale. So like, that put me in a very uncomfortable position where it helped me grow. And I went and hired a coach to improve my accent. So like, things like that. Yes, I have that drive. I think, my dad says I'm like Fidel Castro. He jokes about it. I'm like, no, but it's a combination of that and learning from all these amazing people around me, from coaching, through other fellow realtors in the office, through masterminds, to people like yourself, that has allowed me to be able to execute on what I've always wanted. Because I didn't go to college. I didn't know any of these things. Everything I've learned from someone else. I don't have any secret sauce. All I do is I just get it done. That's really what I do.
Yeah, and I don't think you going to college would have taught you the things that you taught yourself, because that's not what college focuses on, right? College focuses on theory and has nothing to do. I don't know if you know Bob Nacok. He's one of the biggest commercial real estate brokers. He sold billions of real estate in New York, and he went to Wharton, and one of the questions to him was it worth it, those 4 years? He said, I would rather have went and became a broker after I was 18 years old, skipped the 4 years in college, and that 4-year experience would have propelled me even further. So, you mentioned not going to college. I don't know, it may have been an advantage not going to college, because college kind of like trains you in a certain mindset to follow certain things that you don't think outside the box, and you don't create these systems that are not normal. Even when you mentioned you're recruiting now, right? And all the other brokers have been trained in a certain way, and then they come to you and you're assigning them new assignments and you're asking them to do things, and it's so unconventional for them, there's a pushback. Meanwhile, you say you don't have a secret sauce, but it looks like you do. Where if I was a real estate broker, I would say, okay, let me learn from the master, the secret sauce, and be able to scale my business the same way you are.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the secret sauce is just to actually do the work. It's working. I think I will outwork every single person in my market.
When you started, were you always 100% confident that you'll succeed? You were?
Yes. Since I was 14 years old, I told my mom, I was like, Mom, I was born in Venezuela, but I actually grew up in Manchester, England when I was a child, and then went back to my country of birth. And when I was there, I hated it. I didn't like the culture. I didn't like how they treated women. There was no equality, no opportunity. I told my mom, why was I born here? Please take me to the United States. I know in the United States, I can do anything I want. So I kind of always knew, and I still do. I'm not even close to where I want to be, vision of where I'm going to be. And I'm working on that. I don't know. And it's not about money. It's just, I don't know, I'm competitive.
No, yeah, I see that. I see that very much. Was there anything that happened like during your career that made you say, okay, maybe this is not for me. Maybe I need to switch gears here? Because from my understanding, it almost seems like it's just smooth sailing. You started and then you started to do better than the year before, every year going forward, and then you just kept expanding. Was there anything that happened within that time frame since 2009 when you said, okay, you know what, this is not for me, and you came very close to just doing something else and quitting?
So yeah, I mean, I wanted to fulfill my dream of being my own boss, but I had always an understanding that being my own boss didn't mean that I was going to have flexible time because there's no such thing, or a balanced life. There's no such thing. I mean, if you have a balanced life, you're not making any money. So I feel like I've always, whenever I set my mind to something, I always get it done. Whether even when I was a teller, when I started in banking, I was a teller. I was like, I'm going to be the number one teller in this branch, where I'm going to get the most amount of direct deposit credits, because I would ask every single customer. I would ask them if they would need a savings account, a checking account, a money market account. So like, even when I was just a teller, I was the best teller. So it honestly, it doesn't matter what I've done in my life. Like I always want to be the best of whatever is it that I've been doing in my life. And I would say going through that hardship of being broke, and losing my job was the best thing that ever happened to me, because once I overcame that, I know that anything is possible no matter what.
Very interesting. And you said you're under Compass, right? Did you ever think about, opening up your own, where it's under your own name, where you're branding your own brokerage? Or what does Compass offer you that you're staying under Compass specifically?
That's a great question. So did I think about it? Yes, I thought about it. Do I want to do it? I have no interest whatsoever at this time, especially to where I am now, where I want to focus on quality and larger deals, less transactions. I mean, Compass has built an unbelievable brand. Number one, our CEO, Robert Refkin, is an unbelievable CEO. Is one of my favorite people, leaders that I admire and respect very much. He's super hands-on. Not that many companies you work for where you have a problem and you can literally pick up the phone and call the CEO. I mean, there's been many times where our CEO has taken the time out of his crazy schedule to meet with me for 20 minutes, even if it's in a coffee shop to talk about something super important. So having that, I align with the way he operates. That's number one. Number two, the brand has built an unbelievable brand, but I get it. At the end of the day, there's a lot of different great brands out there. We're not the only one, but it has allowed me to go from selling traditional homes, under $500,000 to selling, $10 million homes, $15 million homes. So the brand has allowed me to open a door. Now I still got to do the work myself, right? Because it's just one component of a sell, but it's helped me. It's helped me elevate my image. Would I need it now and still be successful if I leave Compass tomorrow? Yes. Do I have an interest? No. I just love the company, love the CEO, and love the culture of the collaboration of the agents, really. But there's a lot of great companies out there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that me and Farouk always talk about is how does the broker select the brokerage that they work for, right? And we've seen some brokers who they stayed with one brokerage throughout their entire career, and others who have been, kind of bouncing around from one to another, seeing, what the opportunities are out there. So that's why we're always curious why somebody selects a specific brokerage. And I guess for you, it's the alignment of personalities and the way the CEO runs his shop that you enjoy being on the Compass.
Yeah. I mean, before Compass, I was with another company for 10 years. I'm pretty, not going to say just loyal, but like, I don't like to be bouncing around. I like stability. There's so many things. And here's one of the things with everything that happened with the market last year after August 17, with all the compensation structures that change, like Compass has had my back. Like I can go to sleep knowing that I'm not going to get sued. And if I get sued, Compass got me because this business we're in a lawsuit for everything. I see some of my friends that work for boutique firms. They don't even know what forms they need. They don't have any support. They don't have that. Like, I feel like somebody has my back. And that's really one of the reasons I stay with Compass and aside from all the great people that are in the company.
What is your view on the change in the laws with the buyer agreements now versus the way it was where the seller was kind of responsible for both buyer and seller commission?
So number one, it's been a nightmare because it's a lot of paperwork. But number two, so we actually make more money now. Last year, so I track all my numbers. So last year, after it changed, we went from the year before we were averaging 2.4% compensation on the buyer side. After the changes, we closed the year with 2.6. So we had an increase on that. And then as far as the listings, this year alone, I am charging 3 to 3.5% on most of my listings. So we're making more money on the listing side as well. And I just did an analysis because one of my friends texted me and she's like, she runs a very big team in Miami. She does like $150 million in volume. And she's like, we're getting rid of all these leads. Our average compensation is 2%. She's like, what's yours? I'm like, I don't know. Let me check. So I text my ops manager. I'm like, send me a screenshot. What do we have? Like my average right now, year to date is like 2.75. And I even had deals above 3% on the buyer side. So my agents are doing a really good job following the process that we do. So we get our deals executed and everybody gets compensated fairly. So I don't know. It's hard, but we're doing it.
So how does that happen? So before, the seller would pay 6%. Typically half of it goes to the seller's agent, half of it goes to the buyer's agent. Is it still the same structure? There's just more disclosures to the seller, or what changed since that law passed?
So what changed is the way we present it to the sellers. Now, when we're going on listing appointments, I'm not saying I charge 6%. I'm saying I charge 3, or I charge 3.5, or I charge 2.5, depending on the price point, what we're dealing with here. And basically, how much do you want to pay to the buyer's agent? And then they're going to ask you, what do you think? Then we will say, well, I recommend you match the compensation. We want to make sure that the buyer's agent is also motivated and compensated. But if there's any pushback and they only want to pay 2%, guess what? We're taking that for 2%. Now, the buyer's agent that brings in the buyer could submit an offer and be like, hey, I want 3%. So let me ask the seller to bring the compensation up. Everything is open for negotiation. It has always been like that, but now it's more on the table when we're having these conversations early in the game about negotiating compensation.
Interesting. So I know the whole premises of this lawsuit was to reduce the closing costs for the seller. So instead of them paying for the buyer and the seller, they'll say, you know what, let the buyer pay separately to the buyer's agent. Like, did you ever have that conversation? Or with the sellers, like, you know what, I don't want to pay for the buyer's agent, have the guy pay them. Did you ever come across that?
So,
and if that happened, would that mean that the broker would never show it, pretty much the property, where the seller doesn't want to pay them?
Well, they're supposed to show it. At the end of the day, the buyer is the one that says, I want to see this property, and they need to understand that they may or may not be compensation. And it's the buyer's agent's job to handle that conversation. On our end, I have not had a single seller who has not paid compensation, especially in Fort Lauderdale, which is my market. We are in a buyer's market. We have, when you look at the inventory under $1 million, we got, 10 months worth of inventory. When you look at, the middle market, the 3 million to 10 million, we got 21 months worth of inventory. When you look at the ultra luxury 10 million and up, we got almost 6 years worth of inventory. So sellers are paying compensation. I think I've had maybe one transaction where there was a seller that was not paying compensation, and we built it in. No one's going to work for free. So it's all about skills, right? And how you present it to the customer, the seller or the buyer, and show them, the options, and everything is up for negotiations.
With the market where it is, right? Do you see prices? Because I'm personally in the market to buy a home, and I've started seeing, prices trickle down, price cut, multiple price cuts on the same listing. Do you see this as the beginning of the prices coming down, or are we yet to hit the bottom? What do you foresee for the market?
I think, so this is tricky, right? Because I do a lot of inventory and with a lot of people. So it really depends on the price point. I'll give you an example. Most of my listings have had 4 to 8 price reductions before I get them sold.
That is a lot.
Because it's a lot, right? I've never had that in my career. So a lot of what was happening is, in the last year, a lot of the sellers think is, COVID days is 2021, and there's a line of people out the door to look at a home or buy a home. And then the buyers thinks is 2008, 2009, the market's crashing. They're short sales. So we have it hasn't been, we have two perspectives. I would say now, finally, after about a year and a half being in this position, people are being a little bit more realistic. I have closed 3 deals just in the last 60 days where my seller has lost money. I'll give you an example. He bought this property for 2.2 million and we closed at 1.8. He bought it in 2022, put $200,000 into it and took a huge hit. That's just one. I have many examples like this. At the end of the day, if the seller is motivated and they need to sell, the market is going to speak. And I do my job. I bring in tons of people through the door, and nobody could ever question the marketing that we do. But at the end of the day, the buyers speak, and the buyers are willing to pay this amount, and the seller either says yes or no. So we're seeing that. I think it's a good time to buy, though. I'm a buyer too. So good deals.
Do you see it continuing to go down? For
the city of Fort Lauderdale, I would say yes. But when I speak to some of my friends in other markets, their market is a seller's market. And it also depends on the budget. Like, I just did a little deal for $400,000. I had the hardest time selling this home. I used to sell homes in this neighborhood in 3 days. It took me 6 months to sell this home. And we're talking about a $400,000 property, completely renovated, brand new roof, brand new everything. So when those things happen in my local market, for me, that's a bad sign. So I'm being very strategic with price. And we're spending more money on marketing, really. I mean, you got to make a little bit more of an effort, financial and physical effort, to get a home sold today than what we did 2 years ago.
So when that seller that you mentioned who took a huge pay cut, or a haircut, I should say, like what? I mean, he owned the property for only what, 2.5 years. Like, why didn't he or she or whoever? Why didn't they just wait? Were they forced to sell that property?
So no, they were not. There was no mortgage. So this particular client actually bought another home. So they upgraded. They bought like a $5 million home, and they had this home that was on the market that they didn't need anymore. They didn't want to rent it. They didn't want to be a landlord. They just wanted to sell it. That's just one example. I have other clients. I mean, if you look at some of the history of my inventory, you see price reduction after price reduction. I have something that I implemented last year. It's called the Do Not Fire Me report. And I've spoken on stage in several places with Tom Ferry around the country about this. Every single Tuesday, every person that I work for, every seller receives this report. In this report, I have all the marketing efforts that I've done as a team, with the results and all the, any market comments, updates, what I'm recommending, what to do. So like, they can never question that we're doing the right thing. The market's just not having it. And unfortunately, it's either that or they won't sell. I'm doing a first short sale after so many years right now, negotiating a short sale. I haven't done one of those in a very long time.
Well, at least you know what it is. And I'm sure a lot of real estate agents have zero idea, but it seems like you have a lot of experience with that stuff.
Yes, unfortunately, I do.
Do you ever lose a listing to a seller or who's speaking to a broker who overpromises everything, who promises them that, prices are going to keep going up? How much of the seller expectations do you adjust when you first meet with them?
So before I even meet with anybody, I send the seller a complete recap of the market, very, very detailed. Like, they cannot question anything. I'll give you an example. I'm going to an appointment on Saturday, and I just sent this email to him last night. And in that email, I said, okay, there's been 6 homes that sold just like yours and your price point. Out of these 6 homes, one of them was a VA loan, 2 of them were FHA, 3 of them were conventional. This one got credit, like very, very specific information that's not available to the public. So when I get there, if they tell me they want to overprice the home by $100,000, I'm like, Mr. Seller, there's not a single home that has sold to a cash buyer. All of these people are financing. They don't have any more liquidity to buy, and this is our market. So it allows me to prepare the seller before I sit with them. I honestly don't get too much pushback because at this point in my career, I'm very knowledgeable and experienced. And I also prepare. I over prepare regardless of how much I know. And typically yes, there's going to be an agent out there who's going to say, I'm going to do it for 1% or 2% or 1%, or we can list it for $100,000 higher. I would walk away from that and tell them I just can't help you.
Are you one of those people? So there's a populace out there right now that says if the rates go down, that's going to save the market and the market is going to start booming. Are you one of those people who thinks that if the mortgage rates go down by 1%, the market will be revived?
It will for sure, because I've lived it already many, many times. But it's a lot of the people are on the sidelines, and what's going to happen is going to push the prices up because we're going to have demand, and it's really specific by area. I mean, I have homes that if I put a home in this particular neighborhood on the market today, I'm going to get 10 offers regardless of what's going on, right? Because 74% of the buyers in the market are cash, so they don't really care. But if I put a home in a particular neighborhood where interest rates are important, like the $400,000 I was telling you, that's going to push the price up, and I'm going to have way more offers. I do think that will help a lot for sure. But at the end of the day, it's very targeted on like what area. Because Fort Lauderdale, when I look up, Fort Lauderdale is 60% cash, 40% finance. If I go to the other side of the city, it's the other way around. So it really depends where I'm working at.
Understood. So
go ahead.
Sorry. So some people would argue, and the reason why I bring this up is, for example, specifically for Florida, the taxes and the insurance haven't gone up so much since the pre-COVID days, and the word that it's going to continue going up, and just the unaffordability. So even if the rate goes down, let's just say by 50 basis points, with the other components, and then in certain neighborhoods with the HOA, right? So if you're in condos or specifically condos, right? HOA has been more than doubling in some of these buildings. Do you think the interest rates are really going to affect on those properties where?
No, not with 50 basis point. No, not with everything that's going on right now with the tariffs and everything else. I would say it has to be more than that. So that's why I say I don't think this year we're going to have a huge impact. I actually think the rest of the year, it's going to be very similar. We're going to see a lot of price reductions. We're going to see properties close for way less than what you ever expected. We're going to see people do short sales. We're going to see people, lose money. in my local market, right? When I talk to other friends, it's a different market. But here locally, that's what we're seeing. Now, in the higher price point, like the luxury market, that's a different game. Honestly, I'm selling these properties sometimes even full price. Like people just don't care. So it really depends on the price point that we're talking about. I feel like 50 basis points not going to do anything to us at all.
Right. So for the luxury market, Miami area, Fort Lauderdale are notorious for the foreign buyers, right? Specifically from Latin America. Sunny Isles used to have the Russian buyers that are no longer part of the deal because of everything that's happening. Do you see the foreign buyers as active as they were 2 years ago?
So I don't really work Miami anymore. I used to when I first got into the business. I'm very neighborhood specific. So my market here, the only international buyers that are really significant here are the Canadians. So yes, I have already, in the last 2 weeks, I've already gone on several appointments from Canadians who want to liquidate what they have and basically leave the United States. I'm starting to get those phone calls. Especially there's an area here, it's called the Gulf Mile. There's a ton of condos in there. It's like all Canadians. South America, we don't really have that many people from South America come here. It's not my clients. Most of our people are from, upstate New York, Texas. Now, one of the things I track is like where my buyers coming from. So like I do this analysis on each property that I have marketed, and I've noticed in the last like 9 months, like 40% of the people are all local, the people that are buying right now. So the international, yes, the Canadians, it's going to be a little bit affected, but I don't think it's going to be big enough to cause an impact on my business.
Okay, so the Canadians are actually selling because of everything that's going on. Okay, very interesting. Because some people say there's a big part of Canadians that, kind of want to leave Canada, but here the Canadians are leaving the U.S. Very interesting to know.
I've gone on 2 appointments in the last week for Canadians with the situation, and we're talking about $3, $4, $5 million homes.
Very interesting.
I have a few Canadians that live in my building. It's a condo building in Brickell, and like all their friends are moving in. It's so very interesting. But maybe there's also a difference between people who rent and people who buy. But there's so much uncertainty now, even with the rates. And I don't know if I could ask that question. Paying attention to what happened in 2009, where the rates pretty much started to go down significantly. The real estate prices bottomed out only 3 years later, in 2012. And I think what happens oftentimes when the rates go down is a lot of sellers or possible sellers, potential sellers, see the rates going down and they say to themselves, wow, the prices are not skyrocketing. And they get into this panic where let me start listing my property and the other property, and all these people who are waiting put all their properties to market. Now you have a overflow of inventory, and that just by default lowers the price of the homes. So it really is I guess we'll have to live to see. There's too much uncertainty now.
There is.
We were interviewing a gentleman. He builds spec homes, not spec homes, but a community of homes, like 300 homes at the same time out in Illinois, the suburbs. And he mentioned, he's a little older. He's like, back in the days, there would be a big event every 6-7 years, maybe 8. Now we have an event every 6-7 weeks. That's substantial enough to move the market. We're in that world where we have to like always adapt. And I'm not going to bring back the conversation to Tom Ferry. I know you mentioned him quite a lot, and now I think you're a coach with him. So you went to your first masterclass with him in 2000. Tell us more. I believe 2019. You mentioned, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So tell us how did you get involved with him? How did you discover him? How did you start working with him?
So I coached with his dad for 10 years, Mike Ferry, when I first got into the business. And then when I got introduced to Tom, it completely changed my perspective on where I wanted to go in my career, because Tom Ferry is not teaching you how to handle an objection with a seller. Tom Ferry is teaching you how to build a business where you can have a semi-balanced life and more of a normal family life, and not kill yourself and do everything, and learn how to delegate and how to build systems. So I am a coach for him too. I'm still in coaching. I have a coach that coaches my entire team. I don't make any decisions without talking to my coach, even at this level, even with what I know. Like anytime I'm going to hire, fire, invest in a new platform, on a new marketing strategy, I run everything through my coach. So for me, is no longer a question of like, do I need a coach? I'm going to need a coach until the day I retire. And I'm also a coach. I coach a few teams in Texas. I don't take too many coaching clients because I'm very involved in production this year. So I do it because I like it. It's fun. And I'm also a paid speaker for Tom. I just became one this year, and I travel with the team and I speak about what I'm doing. I share that with other agents. So I hope that they get inspired and they implement at least some of the things that I'm doing so they can win as well. So yes, I'm all like, Tom Ferry is my idol, and he's, his business, his model, his mentorship has completely helped me, to get to where I am today.
So at which point did you decide to give back, right? So coaching is all about giving back and improving other people's life. Have you always had that charitable part to your personality?
Yeah, always. Obviously, you have to, choose your battles, right? As long as it doesn't affect or impact your own personal life, your family, your financials, then you gotta make that decision. When I retire one day, if I retire, I would love to do more coaching, right? Because it's fun, it's exciting to see how you tell somebody to do this, they go and do it, and then something happens and they're winning. Like I have two ladies right now. They're both doing 100 deals a year. And these women, I tell them, listen, do this, and that. They go home, they do all these things. The next week they come back and report, okay, this is what happened. This is what happened. So it's amazing. It's a great feeling. Aside from that, I mentor my team as well. And then there's, just like me, there's a lot of different people. I've been doing this. Well, I've been mentoring the team for 5-6 years now. And as a coach for Tom Ferry, I'm on my second year.
Very nice.
We asked earlier how you define your success when you first started. Like, how would you define your success in the next 10 years? What does that look like? What does it make you say, 10 years from now, oh, wow, I really did well for myself? Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, I already feel that way. I feel like, so I have 2 children. My daughter is about to start law school. My son is a mechanic for private aviation here in actually in Miami. So like for me, like success is like knowing that all the hard work that I did when I was a single mother, like sometimes I would even forget I would go to watch a game and I was watching the wrong kid because I was all over the place. I was doing everything, right? To like that degree. But like those efforts that I did all these years trying to build my career and having such an amazing relationship with my 2 children today is for me that success, right? Because it was worth it. I always question myself. Am I doing the right thing? I forgot to pick him up from soccer, football, whatever. I forgot to do this. I forgot to do that. Oh my God, I missed this trip. Like those things because I had to work. I had to produce. I had to pay the bills. I always question, is this the right thing? And now that I am in a place in my life that I'm very fulfilled with my career and my progress and where I'm heading. And I have an unbelievable relationship with my kids and my kids are, the good head on their shoulders. I feel like that I'm successful. Like my kids want to come to my house every day. They don't make any decisions without talking to me, right? So they respect me and they admire me. And I'm happy with just that. I mean, what I do moving forward, all the other things it's just fun. It's exciting to build and keep doing things. At this point, it's not about the money, even though I love the money, but it's about winning and it's about knowing that nothing is impossible. Me and anybody else who's listening can do anything as long as you're healthy and you do what you say you're going to do. So I guess that's success for me.
Yeah, that's very admirable. The thing you mentioned about being a single mom, we were raised by a single mom as well. So, we know firsthand how tough it is to raise kids when you have to work and you can't be for your kids as much as you want to be. So that's very admirable.
And Lourdes, I know, you're a busy person. I know you have a meeting in probably 4 minutes or 5 minutes across the street. We appreciate having you on the call. I think we have a lot of insight. I think, we can probably spend 2-3 hours having these conversations. You're a very interesting person, very ambitious, very intriguing. I thank you again, and I wish you all the best of luck with everything, personal and business.
Thank you for the opportunity and lots of good luck with this podcast. It's awesome. I love the platform. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming on.